Hey, welcome back to another episode of It's a Football Thing. As always, I'm your co-host, RJ, the Balanced Blue, joined by my fellow co-host, champion mate, Rob, the Happy Red Devil. But unfortunately, we are not joined by our third co-host, Scott Laguna. Rumour has it he's flown over to the UK for crisis talks with Arteta and co, given their second back-to-back two-goal lead that was squandered at the hands of West Ham. But Robbie, before we get into all of that, how you going, my man?
Yeah, good, man. It's, good to see you back again after another crazy weekend of football. Obviously, we haven't got our third wheel tonight, but I'm sure we'll get through.
Well, it's convenient that he's not here. Arsenal stumble a little bit, but in all seriousness, we do wish Scott all the best down on his holidays. Much earned break, of course, with the family. So, Scott, I know you'll be tuning in, my man. All the best for it. Leave a comment because I know you'll be tuning in from wherever you are. But it's also great to have the gang here already on the IFT couch. We've got Tom from the United podcast. We've got Marty, our proud, not so proud Spurs fan, I should say at the moment. And of course, Emad, the Happy Red Devil. Let's get straight into it, Robbie. I want to really, while it's fresh, get your thoughts as the Man United correspondent in the house. We have a lot of United fans here. I did watch the extended highlights, as we said before we went live. And what I will say about what I did see and listening to your gaffer, Ten Hag, speak about the performance after the match, it was a very comprehensive performance overall and effort, but perhaps not as ruthless as what you're expecting. But what did you make of the actual game itself?
Yeah, look, I think the word that sums up is dominant. I think possession-wise, 68% possession, 8 shots to none on target. Obviously, with the 2-0, we got the win, but as he said...
Lightning start, first half.
Yeah. But look, I think the thing as well, man, Christian Eriksen, a massive, he was not even in the starting lineup. Obviously, we had a late withdrawal from Sabitzer, who hurt himself and added himself to the hospital wing. At the moment, we've got 10 players out. But look, the boys were a little bit under pressure in the sense from the previous results over the weekend. We really needed to get the 3 points in there. So to come out in our away game against Forest, we had no left back today at all. We had to play a right back and left back. We had to have Harry Maguire come in, Lindelof come in. Obviously, Eriksen, quality player. He had to come in at the last second just in the warm-up. Rashford's still out. So, yeah, we had a very make-do team, but the boys all put in a shift. A quick shout-out to Anthony. Obviously over the season, for some reason, he's got a lot of stick. He was excellent today. The last month, I think, he's actually been one of the best players on the field weekly, very consistent. He was great today, goal and assist. So he had a contribution in both goals. But yeah, man, the team just played so good. Like I said, dominated in all halves. I think they had one little chance that ricocheted off the post, off a corner, but again, technically not a shot on target. And besides that, everyone played well, man. Distribution from De Gea, everyone always gets up him about, he's only a good shot stopper. He can't distribute today. Again, he really added some extra distribution to his game. Could have got an assist from Sancho. Everyone played well. We were dominant. The 3 points was a must today, and we got it. So, yeah, very happy.
And look, it's hard to disagree with the general sentiment. You guys were the deserved victors of the result and everything like that. However, there was a shaky moment when Dalot went right at the back end of that first
bad
half.
Bad
very
touch.
Heavy touch.
Yeah.
That could have easily been punished had they had their composure boots on. But I just want to touch on this comment from Emad about the whole it's the bottom three side and you should be getting those results. But what I would say, Emad, is it's not always that black and white because, as you know, those teams that are somehow in the bottom three, they're the ones that can give you the most grief at times because arguably they're the most desperate to get themselves out of that dangerous situation. But look, you guys have been pretty good throughout most of the season. I suppose my question to you, Robbie, just to round out the thing from a United perspective is you highlighted there's a plethora of injuries. You mentioned around 8 or so, and most of them would be competing for first team starts. Where do you see now, if you were Ten Hag, what position of the pitch concerns you the most leading into these final few weeks?
Centre back for me. Straight
Centre
away.
back?
Lindelof stepped in today, and I thought he was flawless today. I thought he's done a really good job. Didn't put a toe out of line. Look, it's for me. I'm not going to hide from it. I don't trust and I don't feel confident with Harry Maguire there. Obviously, today he had a few little mistakes early on, but he did grow into the game with confidence later on. But I just every game I'm gonna think there's a mistake in him. There's a mistake in him, and sometimes it's just he has bad luck on him. You know, would have seen from the Europa League how he blew that 2-goal lead in the last 10 minutes. Just something like an own goal. Like even though he couldn't really do much about it, it has to be an own goal or something like it's always something connected with. There was I think one chance today where he turned his back and it just went against the post, or it's just I don't feel confident as when we had Varane and Lissandro Martinez. Lindelof, for me, I'm fine with him going in. I'd rather see Luke Shaw partner him and play Lassie at left back. I don't feel confident with him, and we still got some big games. Even this weekend, we could be through one or two or out of both competitions. Besides the Premier League, we obviously got the semi-final of the FA Cup and the quarter-final second leg of the Europa League. So yeah, some hard games ahead. I don't know. He is the acting captain, so I don't know if he will be starting all the time or if he'll change up with Luke Shaw. That'll be Mr. Ten Hag's decision.
Yeah, and a fair call. And speaking of Mr. Ten Hag, who I have the utmost respect for, he did comment on this bloke on the screen, Anthony. Now, we know Scott, our third co-host, who, for those who've just joined us late, Scott's unable to join us this evening due to some family commitments, well-earned break. Now, we like to often give a little bit of stick to Anthony, a bit of the fidget spinner, a bit of a dancer without the real end product. But Ten Hag gave him some praise this morning, and he knows what he can deliver. He's worked very closely with him. How have you made his integration, particularly in recent performances, and do you see his trajectory for the rest of the season continue to go up, or do you think he'll hit another sort of speed bump and a sort of plateau for the remainder of the campaign?
No, look, my honest opinion is, like I said the last month, I think he's been consistently good, and his trajectory has been in the upwards already. And like I said, so, look, as wingers or attackers, if you don't get your stats as goals or assists, people are going to always say, "Oh, did you have a good game?" But for me, he's a workhorse. He's one of those guys. He's always wingers are going to frustrate you. He does frustrate you. Sometimes he doesn't. I want him to put on his right because he's very left foot dependent. But when he does mix it up and does put on his right, he gets something out of it, gets a shot away, or he fools the defender. But he always tracks back and helps in defense. That's one thing about wingers I appreciate. If you're not going to get your assist, he runs non-stop. He presses. But if you lose the ball, you'll see him come back 100 miles an hour, try and win the ball back. Always aggressive, always tracks back. And like I said, it's always a bonus when he does get a goal or an assist. Like I said, he's a winger. He's one of those guys, he might try 3-4 times for one of those worldies, but he'll hit it on the fifth time. And he scored some big goals this season for us. Not Barcelona out. Scored against City, scored on debut versus Arsenal. So a lot of people, give him a lot of criticism, which for me, he's a young player. He's come from a complete different competition. He's come to the hardest competition in Europe. For me, I think he's had a really good season, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's all relative, isn't it? Because and perhaps it's a good time to transition because you look at players coming in and it's a tough league. There was a bit of money spent on him, and hence with that money, there's rightly or wrongly a certain level of expectation. Look, we can't all be like Chelsea spending, who all the players hit the ground running, of course. But in all seriousness, you look at players like Erling Haaland. He's a freak of nature, isn't he? And I watched that match and I saw it live because it was at a pretty friendly time as well for myself. And I just look at the way that Man City go about their business, albeit against a very weak Leicester City, it must be said, who are in their own relegation threatened race where they sit at the moment. But just how professional they were, just how clinical Haaland was in terms of his penalty and that second within the first 25 minutes. They just look like a team, Robbie, that's been there, done that, been there, won that. And even though they're in the chasing position, they don't seem to be too concerned about being in a position of inferiority relative to Arsenal, who, of course, are in front at the moment. But did you catch the City game? And if so, what did you make of their performance?
Ruthless again. They got to keep winning, and pretty much if they want to win the Premier League, it's in their hands now. They got to win pretty much every game now, and no matter what Arsenal do, I do think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure if they win every game, they will become champions.
It's in their hands now.
Yeah. So, and like I said a few weeks back, I think it's worse to be hunted. It's better to be the hunter. You can see your target they've got their target and they're just pushing. And as we've seen the last 2 weeks, and we'll get to it soon with Arsenal, that little bit of pressure they're starting to find a little bit of cracks, and they're seeing, okay, they're just full of confidence at the moment. 3-0 up against Bayern in the Champions League. They've been winning consistently. They're putting the pressure on Arsenal. They've got the goal scorer, they've got the players, they've got the quality, they've got the depth. All they've got to do is put it together. And so far at the moment, mate, that I can't see anyone stopping them in all competitions.
For me, what they found is the confidence and the cohesion that was perhaps lacking earlier in the season, because while Haaland was the one scoring the goals, a lot of the narrative was, but have Man City actually improved as a team despite his individual contributions? And what I think we're seeing now is City starting to find a bit more of their regular rhythm, and you've got players also contributing, like Jack Grealish has been in really strong form. You've got Silva playing really strongly. You've got Rodri in the middle. You've got the defenders that are consistently distributing from the back and really getting the attacks going. So
John's
I don't know,
scoring rockets and stuff.
Well, that's right. Well, that's the thing. But when you're in a good spot, all of those things start working in your favour. And from 1 minute, we're talking about Man City having a bit of an ordinary season, that they're well and truly on course to get the dreaded treble from United's point of view and even from us. So, look, for me, I don't want to speak too much more on it. But again, you said ruthless, I say clinical, and ultimately as professional. And now they're soon to become the hunted again if the results keep going their way. But now just wanting to move on to the other team at the top of the tree, Arsenal. Look, 2-0 up against West Ham, well and truly in control, completely outplayed West Ham in that first half an hour. Then Thomas Partey loses the ball to a textbook Declan Rice interception, concede a penalty. All of a sudden, the momentum shifts. Then Saka, second half, they get a penalty, fully deserved. It was a clear-cut handball. Bottled it. Total bottle job. And it's not like Saka's missed an important penalty before in his career. But, for all due respect, football comes at you fast, because moments after that, they do get that nice goal when they said the bow and arrow. Great commentary, by the way. And all of a sudden, Arsenal, 2 games in a row, squandered 2-goal leads in both games to all of a sudden now shift the tide of the title race back in Man City's favour. Just some quick reflections on Arsenal.
Yeah, look, I've given them so much praise consistently all season, which they've rightly earned. But yeah, the last couple of weeks, like you just said, to get 2-0 both games and throw that lead away. And to be honest, they're lucky to come away with a point. Last week they got away with a point in Liverpool. And today, I think it was, 2-2. Was it Antonio or someone that hit the crossbar as well? Could have made it 3-2 with his header as well. I know they had the penalty miss, but that was really literally a penalty. Well, it wasn't a save, wasn't on target. It was a bottle job. So, again, they've thrown it back into City's hands at the moment. And for me, like I said, they've raised the bar all year. They're title contenders, and if they don't get this over the line, they have bottled it. So, yeah, look, we said last week, and Scott's saying majority of the season when they've dropped points or they've had a bit of a speed hump, they've come back the next week and they've put it right. And look, after 10 minutes, everyone was saying these guys are playing like champions elect. Well, after 10 minutes, they didn't score any more goals. And against a relegation battle away, which is always a hard thing to do. Like everyone does says, these Leicesters and your Nottingham Forest and your West Hams, they're the ones that are trying to get the points. They're the ones that are in the dogfight just as much as they're trying to win the league. They're trying to stay in the league. Other people are competing for European positions. They're still going to throw everything at it. And look, a point for them was massive. Obviously, massive 2 points drop for Arsenal. So yeah, look, I think they've got a couple of big games coming ahead. 10 days is when the big one is against City. I think they've got Newcastle in there as well. So they haven't got a very easy run home. They've got some big teams in there, Arsenal. So it's going to be some fight. Could go down to the wire.
Yeah, and that's what, to be honest with you, given the way that the season's unfolded for my boys, who we'll touch on shortly, I've actually been really interested to see these 2 teams locking horns right to the finish line. Just what I absorbed from that match is, and even Arteta came out afterwards and said, look, we can't use the title race as an excuse. We just need to be more relentless and ruthless once we get in these dominant positions. And ultimately, again, they've showed that there's a bit of a, I'm not going to call it a mentality problem, but I'll call it a mentality question mark. These guys haven't been there before. They don't know the experience of what it's like to go the distance and win the ultimate prize. So I do wonder if that's a bit of a distraction, because when you look at it compared to Man City, realistically, they should be in a position of strength because they've got their eyes squarely on the Premier League only.
100%.
City have got FA Cup, Champions League, which, if we're being frank, that is their number one priority. So the fact that City have got all of these distractions yet are still going about it and are in fact improving, that just shows you the difference in the two teams. But on an individual level, we were very quick to praise Aaron Ramsdale last week and the point he earned.
I agree with this. Yeah.
To be honest with you, he should have done a lot better for that second attempt. And that's
100%.
it's not an indictment on him because of how good he's been this season. But in that moment, that was a goal that I felt on another day, any real world-class goalkeeper makes that save. And that's coming from someone who's very critical of goalkeepers.
Pushed it into his own net. Again, and I think everyone saw it. And if he says that back, he's going to say, I should have. Like I said, he pretty much saved them last week. Superman saves here and there. For me, that, again, I agree with that. I think it was quite poor goalkeeping. But I guess I'll say, because at the moment, from looking out, we can just see City with full of confidence on the rise. And I'm not going to say that they're going downwards, Arsenal, but as a mentally, you'd think 2 games in a row, throwing away a lead both times. For me, you'd think the confidence is a little bit shot, especially someone like a Saka missing a massive penalty like that. To make it 3-1, they could have got the points and could have been all done and dusted. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see again how they bounce back over the next week.
Well, the only, I suppose, real question mark is, because City have more games, they're more susceptible to more injuries and things going a little bit more pear-shaped for them. But they seem to be, like Marty says, they have the depth and winning mentality, and they seem to be taking this in their stride. It's almost like the season has just started for them, strangely. So it'll be definitely one to watch. But speaking of other races to watch, you look at the top 4. Now, we know you guys had a very convincing win. That puts you well and truly in the driver's seat for the top 4, which has been well earned. But you look at the curious case of Tottenham Hotspur and Newcastle. Let's look at them collectively, Rob, because first of all, let's give praise to Unai Emery and Aston Villa. Since he's come back, we've been singing his praises, and rightfully so, because they were totally and utterly dominant against Newcastle, who, for the most part of this season, have shown, if nothing else, they're a really organised and resilient, cohesive outfit. But against Aston Villa, they barely threw a punch, and they deserved to lose in the manner they did. Whereas Spurs, that was such an odd game. And I'm keen to hear Marty's thoughts in the chat and any other Spurs watching, because to lose the manner in the way they did at the last minute, that's got to feel like a bitter pill to swallow, Robbie. Just some reflections on Spurs and Newcastle.
Yeah, Spurs and Newcastle. Well, again, for me, I was smiling at the end of both games, considering where we are on the table. But yeah, as you said, Villa were outstanding, and this was actually, I think, the game I wanted Newcastle to lose more than even Spurs, because tongue in cheek, but they have been very good this season. But I said after the game, someone finally put them in their lane for a change. It's been a while since I've seen them lose, let alone a dominant loss like that as well. And Villa were all over him, like I said. And we're just talking about poor goalkeeping from Aaron Ramsdale. I really thought Pope for two out of the 3 of those goals, I thought he could have done a little bit better. I know he might have been blindsided on one of them, but I really thought, for someone who's been in such form, I thought he was bad. But Ollie Watkins, he's been in the form of his life the last 2 months. But they've gone even Emery's got him from 17th to 6th. These guys are smelling not just top 6. These guys are smelling 4th at the moment as well. If everything goes their way, and when you have momentum, we all know that momentum is a massive thing to keep going and going and going. As for Spurs, this is a definition of Tottenham. Honestly, I feel bad saying that, but that is Spursy as, man. I do feel afterwards, the last week when they got a bit of luck of the draw with I think it was the penalty shout or whatever it was. I do think that this result was a bit coming. So yeah, look, for us, we've got a little bit of a buffer, and I think we've got them next in the Premier League. Tottenham. So if we avoid a loss at Spurs, I think we can nearly put the lock on us for top 4.
Now, some good points you made there. And look, I think United is almost like winning 6 points based on how things have unfolded. But you're right. Look at this ladder roll. It would be such a poetic storyline if Aston Villa snuck up there and stole a top 4 spot. Like, that would just be such a fitting story, given that they haven't been in the conversation. And then look at that, 5 wins in a row based on the form guide. They've come up like Ra's al Ghul, like the League of Shadows. Look at them; they just popped up. And then you see teams like Tottenham. Marty's put in the chat here, we part ways with our gaffer. Number 2 takes over, says everything will be 6th or 7th. Now, I don't know, Marty, that might be a bit dramatic and you're just a hurt Spurs fan. I understand that. I still think you guys will push Newcastle all the way, but Aston Villa, Brighton, who we're going to touch on in a moment because they were incredible, it's such an intriguing battle to see the between 3rd and 7th spot at the moment, Rob. It's just something where, again, as a footballing purist, I'm really excited to see how this season concludes in those Champions League places. But let's get into the joke part of the Premier League. My team, Chelsea Banter Football Club, Joke FC, the Blues, whatever you want to call us. Frankly, it's been disgraceful since all season. Being honest with you, I'm really disconnected as a Chelsea fan. I know we've made financial investments for the long term, but the short term pain, even I, as an optimist, as you know me, I'm balanced in my mind. I did not see the level of decline and transition being as steep as it has been. And perhaps I should have been. Perhaps I was a bit too naive. When you spend that much money, when you have enough of the quality, not the new players, because I wasn't convinced that the new players were going to immediately hit the ground running, but with the combination of these experienced players, with the managers that we had, with all of those factors coming in, I just didn't expect us to be in 11th spot, closer to relegation than we are to being in the top 3, top 4, whatever. So I want you to lay some punches into me, Rob, because I've had some sleepless nights. I continuously think to myself, what is Chelsea Football Club at the moment? People have been online slagging off Frank Lampard and saying, oh, he's got no points in 3 games, blah, blah, blah. But the brutal reality is they've got 19 points out of 63. They've won 4 out of the last 22 in the Premier League or whatever it is. Who would have thought this cataclysmic collapse that is Chelsea at the moment? So just tell me what it's like as a non-Chelsea fan watching the total implosion of my club. Because I know you must be loving life because I'm absolutely hating it.
Look, I hate, like, because I know how.
Just lay into me. Just lay into me.
I know, but I feel bad doing it because, like, I know you take it to heart sometimes, but you know what? It was funny in the first half of the season. Like I said, this has been consistent all year, and every week I say they're gonna bounce back. They're gonna bounce back because you look at their team and you look at. I don't even think I honestly think you could manage that team, and with the players they have, even like I said, take away all the new players, they should be winning games. They should be scoring goals. They should be winning games. You look at that team. There's enough quality to be beating teams. It's not just away. It's at home. It's at Stamford Bridge now. You can come up against a team and you're like, are we going to get a point? Are we going to score a goal now? Like, I finished watching that game and I thought, I wake up in the morning and it wouldn't surprise me if it's a draw. And that's a bad result still at the Bridge.
I knew they'd lose convincingly. My heart, I knew.
I honestly do not I do know how it's gone that bad with Spurs, with Chelsea, and I'm still in the point. It wouldn't surprise me in some crazy galaxy that they'll overturn Real Madrid at the Bridge somehow. I don't know why. It's just Chelsea. I never write Chelsea off, but every week I just can't put it together. Like I said, some of the stats you said before, or we've seen online, like Mudryk got his. He's leading the assists with 2 all season. And, what I think of him at the moment, it's not Chelsea.
He scored 29 goals or something. Like, we scored not even a goal per game.
I know.
We didn't score before this game. We hadn't scored in our last 4 games. All of those stats, and because of how bad we are, every stat you read just confirms how bad we've been. And just this comment from Tom about, can see as a fan, optimism, but we all saw this. But look, what's the part that's killed our club is the fact that we replaced Tuchel with an up-and-coming Potter who, look, I think it's fair to say we all agreed Graham Potter was a good manager for the last few seasons. So it's not just he's at fault here. I think it's the fact that they've come in, they've made some purchases before the season started. They've gotten rid of Tuchel partway through a campaign for someone who's lesser proven, albeit had a good trajectory, to then not give him the chance to see it out with someone who's very close to my heart, who just got sacked from a team facing relegation. All of these things suggest that the board have made decisions while with their good intentions, just don't have the background, understanding or expertise, and are not making it up along the way, but are responding in ways in which they don't know how to do it properly, like a really experienced club would do. So I don't know, to be honest. And Tom's asked the question about Enzo's contract. Why was it extended? My question might be, why not? He is a good enough player. And if he keeps playing the way he has been, and I know he's already in a long contract, so maybe that's where you're coming from, but I suppose it's just to give us a little bit more of a position of stability, keeping him there because he's super young and he's going to be the heart of our midfield for many years, fingers crossed. But for me, I put out a poll, you might have seen it, about who's most at fault for what our current situation is. Is it the board? Is it the players? Is it the managers past and present? Or is it the board past and present? And, the results were pretty much board first, players then manager.
Yep.
But ultimately, and people said it in the comments, while the question asked for one, it's really a combination of all of them when you put them together, because they all need to be working together, because it's not the board on the field and it's not the players themselves setting the strategy, etc. But the reality is they've spent hundreds of millions of dollars. They thought they could come in and do like a Moneyball type setup in some senses, to rely on some data and good players from other leagues, and that it's just going to be a super smooth transition. So look, as I've said to you and Scott, and I've said it to many people, this season is a classic case study of how not to take over a football club and try to become successful in a short space of time. So I don't know, man. What do you think, though? What are your thoughts?
Look, for me, if you're a bowler right now, what would be going through your mind thinking, okay, Chelsea Football Club, one of the most decorated club in the last decade, as you always say, trophies and chaos. He's come in, he had the money, he bought the club, spent a lot of money, obviously had a great coach, sacked him, bringing an up-and-coming one with a project that didn't obviously last long. For me, he hasn't had any plan B after sacking Potter. And, I think I read today from The Athletic that they've narrowed it from 10 to 5 or something like that. I'm like, these guys obviously are looking at a lot of people, but I don't understand why they just didn't continue with a Potter, or why they sacked him. I know the results were shocking, but they haven't got any better at all. For me, it's kind of thrown Frank Lampard's reputation under the bus a little bit, especially if they continue to, keep going down with these results and stuff. But what does he do? Like, if he's thinking in his head, hey, I've spent, 600 million already. Next season, number one, he's got to get a new manager. He's got to get everything right in this off season and hopefully have some kind of positivity to the end of the season. Otherwise, for me, do players want to stay for this new project? Do players want to stay and not play European football this year? Does that hurt who's coming in? Even though you guys have bought enough players, you might not have to worry about that. But for managerial wise, does that have something to do with it? Because I think it might have been Miz today. Say, for instance, a lot of people say just get in Nagelsmann. But if you look at his track record and history, it's not perfect either. He's had a lot of bust ups in the dressing room. He wasn't amazing, obviously, as we can see, getting sacked by Bayern. He done a decent job at RB Leipzig, but again, RB Leipzig, you could nearly say, is like a Brighton, which Potter came from. He done really good at a club that shouldn't be aiming for the top honours. So look, there is a lot of decisions he's got to make that, he's probably thought he made right the first time around this season, which is everything's gone nosedivingly wrong. So he's got to make a lot of changes from now to the end of the season, the right ones, to hopefully have a good season next year and get Chelsea back where they belong in, obviously top 6, top 4 contention.
Well, it's interesting because, and we've got a question here, is who's the coaching answer? Ultimately it's probably not just a black and white who's the answer now, because what we've seen, what we've heard in the reports, you've got this bloated squad. You've got a lot of this talent. You've got people like Lampard and others coming out saying earlier they just don't seem right physically at the moment to do the high pressing that you'd expect. You've got players like Joao Felix, who is a talented player, aesthetically very pleasing. And then against Brighton, he records a stat of 0 defensive actions. It's hard for me to sit there and accept all of this criticism about this lack of tactical acumen and all of where's the intelligence, where's the structure. What's the point of having someone that is super intelligent, can read the game, has the best game plan, if the players themselves can't even do the basics? Like, if you can't get them right, everything else after that will be automatically redundant because you're not getting the baseline effort. You need to have the minimum effort. Like you said about Anthony before, he might make mistakes. He might, make the wrong decision or have the shot when he could have passed or whatever, but you can't question his work ethic. And that's the stuff that the managers depend on. So there's some deeper seated problems there. So I think in terms of, we could bring in Nagelsmann, sure. We could bring in Enrique, sure. But you throw them into the lion's den, so to speak, with this bloated squad who are supposedly not up to standard physicality-wise in the middle of a confidence crisis. To me, that's sounding like you're not really setting them up for success. Yes, they'll have the time to go and say, out, stay, whatever. But as you know, as we all know, if we play the next 10 games and not get any results, how's that going to go into the next season? And who's going to want to play for someone that's absolutely improved nothing? So again, they've put a stopgap solution. It's not a solution. It's just try to get us to the finish line and roll over.
Yep.
But look, and I acknowledge Tom's comment here as well. And I'll go back to another question I got. It's hard to say that. Like, we're judging that from the outside point of view. He does strike me as someone that's he backs his own ability. He is confident and whatever, and that sometimes can give you the perception of arrogance. Like he said, we're going to beat Real Madrid 3-0 the other day. As soon as I heard that, I'm like, why would you say that? Why wouldn't you just say, we're confident, hopefully we can get the job done? So there is a little bit of an arrogance about him, and sometimes that can be a bit ignorant, or him just trying to be confident to the fans. But I don't think his intentions are wrong, and they've clearly put their money where their mouth is with a long-term view in mind. It's just, I don't think he would have seen this sort of cliff dive as stark as it's been. And just the last one on Chelsea, because we'll move on to some Champions League and Europa League sort of analysis and predictions. This question here, what would your lineup be if you got it set? Rather than the lineup, it's almost who would I chop down my 25 to? Because that's how bloated the squad is at the moment. I'd probably look, it's hard to say, but I'd spend more time trying to work out who I wouldn't want to keep. So I think we do need a new keeper. Despite Kepa having some good moments this season and generally being quite sound and positive, there's still something in me that when I watch him, I still don't get that 100% confidence that we can be genuine Premier League contenders with him between the sticks. So for everybody's sake, I think he's the one that would need to part ways. And it could be the same with Mendy too, because he's lost a lot of what made him such a great keeper during that Champions League winning run. But also, we need a proper DM, not a CM like in Enzo Fernandez. So hopefully a proper DM comes in. And then obviously we've got the striking crisis because we've spent all this money but haven't got a proper striker. Although, you might have heard, Inter apparently are going to cut the loan deal with Lukaku at the end of the season. So who knows? The door might be open because we don't want to spend the money on a new striker because we've got Nkunku coming next season plus him returning. Who knows? It might be a Lukaku 3.0. So Scott Borg's tuning in all the way from thing, and it's good to see. It must be the Arteta effect that he's tuning in, the bottle jobs, 2 games in a row, Scott. Hopefully we'll see if Arsenal can win the Premier League in the next 2 decades. Maybe, maybe not. But we will see. We will see indeed. But let's move on, Rob, to the quarterfinals of the Champions League, in which my team is still in there for another couple of days. Chelsea take on Real Madrid. And then, of course, the Italian battle of Napoli and Milan. So let's go with our homegrown Napoli versus Milan. Obviously, Milan secured a narrow 1-0 victory against the Serie A frontrunners. How do you see this one playing out?
Very big clash. Look, AC Milan deservingly got the 1-0 at the San Siro, but look, I think it was massive that Oshahim was out of that Napoli team, who's been obviously the talisman and massive goal scorer. But not just a goal scorer, he's a force. The way he holds up the ball, the way he's confident. For me, going back to the Maradona Stadium, I think it'll be full. There'll be a really mad electric energy there. Look, they've got to score goals, obviously. I don't know. This is what I like about second leg games when it's like this. You got to see what the tactics is. Is Napoli going to go all guns blazing and try and get that early goal, even it up and go for it? Is Milan going to park the bus and try and hit them on the break? For me, I actually still think Napoli can do this at home. If Osherman's firing, I really think they can turn this tie around. And, on their day, they can score 2-3 goals at home. So again, Milan's in the driving spot at the moment. But if there's an early goal in this game for the home team, I see them progressing.
I'm really keen.
Sorry, Antonio. Sorry.
I know. Look, I'm an Inter fan in the Serie A, so I'd love to see that rivalry reignited in the semi-final. But if I'm asked to take a bet on it of who progresses, I still think Napoli are in the driver's seat. I know that Milan have the advantage, but I just think at home, based on the long-term trend of how the season's gone, I do think that they'll be too strong at home. Although I'm really keen to see how Milan approach this game tactically. Like, will they go out to try to get a goal, to try to give themselves an extra buffer? Or do they just hold on for dear life and really play super pragmatic? So it's going to be a really fascinating match. Whereas you look at the Chelsea-Real Madrid game, it must be said, Real Madrid are red-hot, white-hot favourites. They are the reigning champions. They scored 2 goals. They've got players, the current Ballon d'Or winner. You've got the hottest young gun in Europe, arguably, Vinny Jr. The midfield maestros, they've got a full of experience. And at the back, with the goalkeeper, talking about world-class goalkeepers, in the first leg at 1-0, Courtois makes that point-blank save to stop Raheem Sterling from equalising, and that could have changed the pathway of this tie. So it's hard for me to say and sit here and be genuine and to say that we've got a realistic chance of progressing. I don't think we will. I'd love another Stamford Bridge miracle. We've had them before. I just don't think with the current situation, we struggle enough just to score goals, let alone to win games and also to restrict Real Madrid to not scoring any more goals. I just don't see all of those stars aligning, Rob. So even me as the general optimist, I'm going to have to go for Real Madrid. I think they probably win this one 2-1 for myself. How do you see this one?
Yeah, look, I said it last week. For me, this is alive. 2-0 is alive. If there was a third goal in that home leg, it's dead for me. I
definitely agree.
But again, 2-0, we all know it's a scary. You guys have had miracles before, but as you just previously said, really everything's got to line up. And you guys have hit, like you said, can't really score, but you got to stop Real Madrid from scoring. So look, a miracle could be a 2-1 win for Chelsea in the circumstances that you guys haven't been scoring, let alone winning, and obviously that you still wouldn't be enough to progress. But I could even see this being a ball draw. For me, Real Madrid have to go there, and they don't have to score; they just have to not concede. So I will say Real Madrid to progress in this one, but it might be a close game. Chelsea might even get a 1-0 or 2-1 win.
Yeah, the good thing is following the the Bayern Munich disaster class, and we didn't pay them enough praise, by the way. They were phenomenal. The good thing from Chelsea's point of view that gives them a 0.1% hope is that they did rest the likes of Kante, of course, Silva, Mason Mount came on late, Kai Havertz. So Ben Chilwell being suspended, that's a massive blow to our left-hand side. But I'm keen to see how Frank lines them up in terms of personnel. Does he give Mudryk a chance to start, given his impressive display? So if we can go into the half, either 0 or 1-0 up, then I still think we're in it. But I just don't want to get myself believing in something that I don't think will eventuate. But also speaking of teams in very strong positions, both Inter Milan and Manchester City hold 2-0 and 3-0 leads respectively. Do you see either Inter or Man City throwing these leads away, Rob?
No, I'll just give it to you there. I actually see City going to Bayern. I reckon they could put another 3 on Bayern, and that's not being disrespectful. I just think they're in. We've been dreading this moment for a long time, and every year everyone says City's going to win, City's going to win. And I'd be lying if I sat here right now and said, no matter what side of the draw they're on, 3-0 up against Bayern in the quarterfinal. Tell me who's going to stop them realistically now. I don't know. Even if Real Madrid, who would right now would face them in the semi-final, I could honestly see City running riot in the semi-final and the final. I can just see them. I could honestly see a final where it's 3-4-0 winning to City.
Yeah, it's.
It's not. Look, I know it's a 90-minute game and anything can happen in finals, and they're not even there yet. Like, it's a bit. I'm not being disrespectful to Bayern, but really, I can see City going and scoring, and I just can't see Bayern, scoring 4 against City at the moment. Even with Pep, when he does his crazy, Champions League debacles and overthinks things, I just think
puts John Stones in striker or something.
I just can't see how they override that, man. 3-0 is a massive margins against, they are probably the best team in Europe right now. But, even a miracle, if they get to the final, I could not sit there and say that either of those teams would have even a 50-50 chance really against them. It would be a miracle if they beat them. So if they don't win the Champions League this year, clip me now saying that I really will be amazed.
Yeah, no, and they are. They've got to be favourites for sure because they're 99% through to the semis. Real Madrid, we said 85, 90% through. I think Real Madrid, it's funny because even though they got through them last year, they were thoroughly outplayed and somehow got through. But the thing with Real Madrid is because of the Ancelotti factor and because of the experience, they are probably a team I can see pulling off a miracle in terms of if they were super pragmatic and just relied on the pace of the break to outdo them. But Man City, geez, they're a juggernaut to stop. Whereas I'm actually impressed that Inter took a 2-0 lead because they almost conceded away.
Yep.
I don't think this is a cut and dry result because Benfica, if they get an early goal, we all know how Inter's been very shaky recently in the domestic cup. So, look, I'd love for Inter to get through and I'd love them to play Milan in the semi. But for me, I'm confident we'll get through, but I don't think it'll be straightforward. But now I just want to look at the Europa League stuff, Rob, because I know that's very close to your heart for obvious reasons. So just to get that up on the screen, I know you guys had a pretty demoralizing 2-2 draw against Sevilla. So let's start off with them because that's obviously hot for everybody. What did you make of that result, and how do you see this one playing out for the second leg?
Look, if we're being honest, to dissect this game, all the boys in here that watched it, we completely dominated majority of this game, especially that first half, one of the best first halves I've seen all season. Why we didn't score 4 or 5 goals and really put it to sleep in the first half, it's just crazy. Like, it was one of those games, everything was working for us. We went 2-0 up within 20, 30 minutes. Sabitzer scored 2 beautiful goals, and we were just pampering them. I didn't realize that they were that far down in the Liga that they're in a relegation battle pretty much until today. I think they just got out of that. But Sevilla's always one of our bogey teams anyway. So 2-0 up, but then honestly, the last 15 minutes, not even result-wise, just season-ending-wise, lost Lissandro Martinez, fractured foot or whatever it is. He's out for the rest of the season. We lost Varane at half-time, could be out for the season as well. And then 2 own goals as well, just to rub salt in the wound. This is going to be a very hard task going back to Spain now and getting a result with, number one, they're going to have their tails up from obviously coming back and getting a draw out of this game, which they definitely didn't deserve. But look, it's back on even field now. We've got to go play their home ground. If this does go to extra time, obviously it's for me, you always get an advantage if you're the home team. On our day, we can beat them. We're going to be missing Bruno Fernandes as well. That's massive. As I said before, quite a few players out, especially at the back. Who knows? For me, I think we've got enough quality in the team to still do them, but they're just one of those teams, I think in the past couple of Europa Leagues, they've knocked us out as well. Plus, So yeah, for me, I'm gonna say we're gonna edge this because I think if we get through, we can really possibly win the Europa League. That's why I'm spewing that we let go of that 2-0. Because if we get to the semi-final, I think there's a good possibility we win this. Quickly, I'll touch on Juventus. I think even though it was just a 1-0 win at home, mate, they've really been rocks and diamonds this year. More rocks, to be honest. But look, a 1-0 win at home against Sporting Lisbon, who's been obviously knocked out Arsenal, has been in really good form, both domestically and in Europe. I think that's not bad. And if their players, they've all started to come back. Pogba come off the bench for the first time since he left United, pretty much. Di-Maria, he was there. Vlahovic as well. So we've had a lot of players in and out all season. Chiesa, he's another important player. If they can go away, obviously it's going to be hard in Portugal, and they can score one more early goal, I think they can park up and they can progress. And yeah, I think that'll be a good game. Besides that, I'll throw it back to you to talk about the other ones if you've seen or heard anything about it.
Yeah. I'm actually really excited to see Roma turn this one around. I do fully believe in them being able to overturn this. It's a slight disadvantage they're in, of course, and Feyenoord's a team that deserves a lot of respect. But I do like what I've seen with Mourinho's Roma this season. They've really impressed me of how far up the ladder they are. And if we know the cup experience in this competition that Mourinho has, I have full confidence that he's going to get them up for this clash. And yeah, I fully expect Roma to get through. In the other match, I feel a lot more confident with Leverkusen also progressing, but at the same time, it's on a knife's edge that it could go either way. So yeah, it's going to be fascinating in both European competition, Rob. So to see how it all unfolds for the Final Four in both of those. But what an episode. It's been great. We've had a lot of conversation. We got to see, one of us at least being happy, one of us being here, some of us even being on the coast and enjoying themselves to get away from their team's poor performances. So you're up, Scotty. But looking forward to having you for the crowd, for those that have been watching, either in the live audience or those that like to watch us afterwards in the car on the way to work, wherever you like to do it. Make sure you share if it's a friend. Slap a like. Help us reach that wider audience because we're just a bunch of passionate people talking all things football. But Robbie, any final thoughts before we pack up this bad boy?
Yeah, look, man, the dynamic duo, I really enjoyed that. I did miss Scotty. A bit of banter. Would have liked to have thrown some bottle jobs at him tonight after their recent results. But look, I think he knows all United fans are on the Arsenal bandwagon now. We don't want to see City get close to that treble or the three-peat or anything like that. So I do hope.
Now, you know what, Robbie? After this no-show, one more of these, and I think we'll have to sack him.
Yeah, I love it. But yeah, look, it was great, great talk, mate, and yeah, I'll see you on the next one, I guess.
Beautiful. Well, on that note, ladies and gents, hope you have a great evening, and look forward to catching up next time. Stay safe. All the best.
Ciao.